Hello. So today I'm going to be talking about something that a lot of people have been having issues with. It's the aces. So the first thing you need to know is that the ace is something that you're going to see in a player card above their skills. Each player has a different one, but it doesn't mean that two players won't have the exact same ace. So there are three types of aces in the game. There are what we call rainbow aces that will affect any player whatsoever. There are what we call mono aces that are only going to affect one of the colors. So that means light, andor, whirlwind, thunder, dark. And there are dual aces who are going to affect two colors. So again, whenever you're a mono ace, it's going to have the strongest effect. Dual is going to be a bit weaker. And then rainbow is technically the weakest, except for one or two aces who you don't actually have in specific colors. And some aces will have special conditions. So I'm going to start just by pointing out the most popular of all the aces, because I know a lot of people have asked, why is everyone using Scylla as an ace? So there is a very simple reason to this, is this ace. Decrease the inflicted damage by 40% when your hype is 80% or higher. That just means that you get a huge damage reduce increase. Now this is very nice when someone's shooting at your goalkeeper, even better if he's a goalkeeper who heals. It's going to allow you in PvP, when the fights go fast, to have a pretty decent resistance at the beginning, and maybe your passers will live one extra hit. So this is why this is technically the most popular ace, and this allows you to run a rainbow team, because as you see, it doesn't say any element behind. Then you're gonna have different kinds of aces. You're gonna have mono aces. An example is gonna be anavn. Increase action speed of light attribute players by 35. So she's a mono ace and she only affects one stat. Some will affect two stats. Depending on how many stats they affect, the value is gonna increase. Just taking this one for example, I wouldn't say it's really worth it, unless you're gonna be running something like a Vonchi and a Sammy mid, and you have some sort of one-hit ideal going down. That is an option, but even then, this is, for example, what I would call a limit ace. Some are better, they increase hype, damage, crit resist. If I were, for example, to be going mono light, the best ace in my eyes is Valkyrie Beth's, and she's going to increase attack power and critical resistance, who's actually very important, actually better than hype, because a lot of players are going to be destroyed by crit. So this is a huge advantage, especially on the defense line. So for mono light, that's what you want to look for. And then there are dual aces. For example, what I'm running, as you see, I'm running a light dark team except for Magnus, but that's because I love his skills. Her ace is going to be increased attack power and hype of light and dark players. So she's a 30%. She has a pretty decent. Majority of dual are going to be 25. So there are a few of them that are very popular. I don't know if I even have her. I know that in the... No, I don't have her. I know that in the Thunder, Nerua has a very popular ace. There's, for example, Hero, who's going to have a Light and Thunder ace. So when you're building a team, what's very important is always to look at the ace. You want to have at least one player on which you can stick the ace and say it's going to affect at least 9 out of 11 players on my team. If it's less than that, then it's not really worth it. So when you're building a team, you're going to want to look at that ace. I know it doesn't sound that important, but it's going to make a pretty big difference. At the beginning of the game, if you're lucky, you might get some rainbow aces. Just throw those on. And some aces are much more valuable early game than end game. A good example of that will be a Balteon, whose ace is increased critical rate by 25%. At the beginning of the game, you're going to have low crit. It's going to make a huge boost. At the end of the game, well, between 260 and 295% crit, I mean, that's nothing. We don't actually care. Increase the attack power, the crit damage would be more interesting. So again, this is how aces work. A lot of people have had questions on this. So some aces are considered broken. Some are weak. It really depends. A bunch of them do have conditions, like I show you the Scylla. There's also the Scylla, who's very similar. At the place, she decreases damage by 55%, when the hype is 100. So that is also a viable ace for my team, but you're only going to run this if you have a lot of healers. Meaning you need a Virgil, you need a Metatron, maybe even a Black Ivy frontline, or even that new Andor player that they just took out with that huge heal. So that's something you run when you just have heal. So that's basically the idea of aces. Yeah, so whenever you're building a team, you're going to want to look at those things, because a lot of time players are not going to understand when with basically the same formation, they're going to be destroyed by someone running the exact same setup, substones. You just need to look at what makes the most sense, and sometimes when facing certain teams, you're going to want to switch them out. And you always want to be sure what the aces do, and some of them are what I would rank as joke aces. So, well, in the opinion of 99.9% of the community, unless you're running a mono light team and you're fighting a mono dark team, who I have never seen that up till today, unless in the COT, is you're going to be trying to throw this one, who's a joke. Increased damage of light players dealt to dark players. It's a multiplier, so it's actually very powerful, but there's too much of a condition for it to run. So again, you got to be sure that it's gonna activate. Some are situational, some depend the team, some you're just fine with running constantly. So I hope this has helped a lot of people understand the idea of aces. There are a bunch of different effects that they can have. I didn't explain every single one of them, but I mean, just reading the description, you'll understand, and I gave the basis. So I hope you understand now what aces do, how to use them, and you're going to look at them when you're building your next team.